Hi, I'm Jeanette Roche. This is Bridge City News. Here are some of the top stories we've been following. It's deadline day for Liberal leadership candidates to throw their name in the hat to replace Justin Trudeau. Plus, neighbors are shocked when a body is found in a Lethbridge alley. BCN has witnessed reaction. And Southern Alberta experiences a rise in homeless encampments this winter compared to last year. We have the details.
Your nation, your province, your Southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Jeanette Roche.
Thanks so much for joining us. The federal Liberal caucus met today on Parliament Hill as the party searches for its next leader. Candidates who want to run to replace Justin Trudeau as party leader had to confirm their bids by 5 p.m. Eastern Time and pay a $50,000 refundable deposit. The full amount to run in the race is $350,000 to be paid in installments. Liberal House Leader Karina Gould and Indigenous MP Jamie Baptiste have submitted their paperwork. Baptiste is the only First Nations candidate in the race to replace Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. They join former Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland, former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney, and Ottawa MP Chandra Arya, who submitted their documents yesterday. Carney has already secured the endorsements of 4 more current and former cabinet ministers. A new leader will be elected in March. 2 sources close to the Ontario government have confirmed that Doug Ford could call a provincial election as early as next week. Both said they expect the election to be called in the first week of February, but that could happen much earlier.
Stay tuned. But we need a mandate from the people. We need a mandate to protect and possibly spend billions of dollars to protect people's jobs, to protect businesses, and to protect communities. And there's only one group of people, one group that is going to give you the mandate, and that's the people. And that's what's great about democracy. They either vote a government in or they vote them out.
When answering reporter questions, Ford said Alberta Premier Danielle Smith understands why Canada's political leaders need to be united in the face of U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff threat. And he believes the country's premiers are, quote, moving her along in her position.
We had a good discussion with Premier Smith, and she understands we need to be united. And I understand that she wants to protect, her main commodity. But country comes first, over anything. And you can't throw, a tool away from the toolbox. As I said to the premiers, you can't bring a knife to a gunfight. Usually the guy with a knife loses one in a gunfight.
Premier Smith didn't agree.
Well, not right at this point, but I think we're moving her along. I understand, but make no mistake about it. We do have a united country.
For her part, Smith met Wednesday with California Congressman Scott Peters before attending the Citizens for Responsible Energy Solutions reception. On Smith's Facebook page, she says, quote, "It was great to hear from members of Congress about the importance of unleashing our energy sector. Alberta is and will remain a critical partner in achieving our shared goal of North American energy dominance." Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe says he's all for pushing back against proposed U.S. tariffs on Canadian imports to the United States, but Moe says he doesn't want to see broad-based dollar-for-dollar counter tariffs because they're not in the best interest of Canadians.
Saskatchewan is supportive of those very small, targeted tariffs that are there to change the minds of U.S. decision makers. What we have seen since last week is some of the language change to broad-based dollar-for-dollar tariffs being counter tariffs being imposed. Saskatchewan's not in support of that. The broad-based counter tariffs are escalating. The entire conversation around tariffs will be hurtful to Canadians and will be hurtful to the entirety of North Americans and ultimately to that North American energy and food manufacturing security that we want to achieve.
In other news, the Canadian Armed Forces is no longer automatically disqualifying applicants with certain medical conditions as it works to improve its numbers and grow the size of Canada's military. Chief of the Defence Staff, General Jenny Carignan, says the 4 medical conditions that will now be evaluated when people apply are attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, anxiety, asthma, and allergies.
Before, like immediately, if you showed up with some kind of allergy, you were immediately taken off of the, of the road, of the path of being a potential candidate. Nowadays, with the technology available to us, that might not be the case unless you have a very, very severe case of allergy that within the trade or operational fields that you are choosing, you may not have access to the medical support to allow you to, to proceed.
The Alberta government, through the Alberta Foundation for the Arts, is providing 726 grants to artists and art organizations with over $20 million in funding. Minister of Arts, Culture and Status of Women, Tanya Furr, made the announcement Thursday morning that the province is increasing funding by $4.5 million annually over the next 3 years. She says each year the arts sector contributes more than $1.2 billion in GDP and keeps more than 17,000 Albertans employed. She adds, quote, "When the arts thrive, Alberta thrives."
The additional $4.5 million in funding that the AFA received for 2024-2025 fiscal year is already being used to provide direct financial support to Alberta artists. Thanks to this funding growth, the eligible grant amount for individual artists has grown from $15,000 to $18,000. These funds go directly to Alberta artists to help them with the creation and promotion of their projects, as well as other associated costs. As mentioned before, the increased funding has allowed the AFA to experience a nearly 40% increase in the number of grants provided when compared to the same time in 2023. And the fiscal year isn't even over yet. That means that our government, via the AFA, will have even more grant funding to roll out for the arts and artists in the next few months.
It is now day 8 of the educational support staff strike in Edmonton, and union leaders with CUPE Local 3550 are hopeful a deal can be reached after they were invited to return to the bargaining table on Thursday morning. One of the main issues during the strike is the pay of support staff workers, with a third-party mediator landing on a 2.75% raise over 4 years. But union leaders believe the school board's hands are tied in negotiations by provincial education funding. Alberta's finance ministry maintains these negotiations are between the school boards and their unions. There are currently 4 support staff strikes happening across Alberta. Well, residents of a North Lethbridge neighborhood were shocked this morning when police knocked on their door to tell them a body had been found in their alley. Lethbridge Police Service was on the scene between 1st and 2nd Avenue on 16th Street North and spoke to residents in the area. BCN was there to speak to witnesses who did not want to go on camera, but said police officers had knocked on their door to ask if they had noticed anything suspicious in the area overnight or in the previous days. Neighbors were also asked to avoid going to the location where the body was found while investigations are carried out. Well, as of Thursday afternoon, more than $90,000 has been raised in a GoFundMe in support of a Lethbridge family whose children were struck by a vehicle on their way to school on January 20th. The organizer of the fundraiser posted an update on social media saying one of the children has been released from hospital and is recovering with friends and family. Further injuries were discovered on another child, and she is scheduled for another MRI due to the findings. Doctors say she is facing a 6 to 12-month minimum recovery timeline, and the third child is receiving assistance from medical staff with sitting, standing, and walking. And in other news, Lethbridge police are seeking the public's assistance to identify this man in connection with a commercial robbery. On January 17th, just before 10 p.m., the man entered a convenience store along the 2700 block of 12th Avenue South, told the employees he was armed with a weapon and demanded cash. An undisclosed amount was provided before he fled on foot. No one was injured. Anyone who recognizes that man is asked to call police at 403-328-4444 and reference the case number on your screen. Anonymous tips can also be submitted to Crime Stoppers. The city of Lethbridge is experiencing a rise in encampments this winter compared to around this time the year prior. The encampment response team presented a report to City Council this week that highlighted that 124 encampments were identified throughout November and December of 2024. That is a 195% increase from those months in 2023, which saw the team identify just 42 encampments. Most encampments locations have also seen a great shift near shelters. The encampment response team was established in early 2023. Since then, a large spike of encampments was found over summer of 2024, and November saw the highest number of confirmed sites since comparable data was tracked back in July of 2023. The good news in this report states the outreach team was successful in individuals willing to engage and saw outreach referrals rise to 60% from 41% previously. Why Alberta's politics and policies are the way they are and why there is a change in them. So these will be the topics of a public talk next week. To that end, University of Lethbridge political science professor Dr. Lars Hallström explains why it's important to talk about Alberta's political landscape.
Policy, when we talk about policy design, we talk about values of both that audience and of the decision makers, and we talk about the audience and we talk about our context, usually history, institutions, culture. And so one of the very germane questions, given that it's in the news today about the coal mining on the eastern slopes, is how is it that if the Albertan public are not actually in support of that, there was significant uproar regarding the opening up of those exploration and related licenses, then what does that tell us about what politicians think is or is not a political risk? Which audiences are they speaking to? And in that context, as a specific example, there we have an industrial audience that is different from maybe the audience of the electorate and the voting public, i.e. public opinion in the province.
The Public Professors Series talk will be held on Thursday, January 30th at the Sandman Signature Lethbridge Lodge at 7 p.m. Well, if you're a resident of Lethbridge, be ready to witness a surge in retail and commercial development this year. An investment market report by Avison Young shows that Lethbridge is prime for new investors needing to fill in user demand as the city is ready to increase inventory. BCN's Landon Hickok has that story.
Experts at Avison Young Lethbridge say they forecast a significant growth in commercial development and market sentiment in the city beginning in 2025. After stagnation in development over recent years, the vice president of Avison Young Lethbridge, Jeremy Roden, says residents should be excited for new retail, industrial, and multifamily residential projects to begin construction soon, particularly in West Lethbridge, which holds a vacancy rate of less than 1%.
Based on population, West Lethbridge is underdeveloped commercially. So as you can see, there's a couple projects that have gone up in the last 10 years or so, but nothing new. So what we're seeing at the crossings is what we're calling phase 2 of the retail development, which is another 9-acre development. And we'll see commencement start there spring of this year. It's just under service. You know, when there's more than 45,000 people living in an area of the city and not enough amenity to support it, or a lack of amenity to support it, the demand is there to move forward with more projects, and this is one that we're excited about. So we'll see that project commence this spring, this summer.
Total vacancy in Lethbridge sits at just over 4%. With very high demand in the city with over 111,000 people, Roden lists the city's immediate needs that they're also working on bringing in the short-term future.
We are in a position to see more multifamily development. They're under construction right now. I think that there's about 200 to 400 units being built. In the future, we'll see upwards of 500 more units being built over the course of the next 5, 6, 7 years. We've seen an increase on the retail side in grocery store interest for our market. We're working on 3 different locations in the city of Lethbridge with new grocery interest. So that would be increasing grocery stores to the west, the south, and the north. On the industrial side, we have low vacancy currently as well. So there's been a lack of new construction and new inventory brought to the industrial park. So this year we'll see more spec build product coming to the market, probably upwards of 200,000 square feet in the next 1 to 2 years.
Unemployment rates, population growth, and GDP growth will continue to be factors in new projects over the coming years. But for now, the sheer demand in Lethbridge is turning the eyes of investors and new tenants here, especially with new city land purchases in 2024.
We're poised nicely for a lot of exciting new projects upcoming in the next 1 to 3 years, I would say. It's been a few years, longer than that the city of Lethbridge will see this much new development commence and go under construction in some time. So exciting times for Lethbridge.
For Bridge City News, I'm Landon Hickok.
The highly anticipated Winter Career Fair at the University of Lethbridge attracted thousands of students to speak directly with employers about their needs, how to apply for positions, and even how to get hired. Our BCN's Heidi Echevarria was there talking to students and organizers and has the story.
Many who were looking for a job, advice for future career opportunities, or even to know what path to follow according to the experience and study they have so far, met yesterday at the UFL Career and Student Services Fair, organized by the University of Lethbridge. The Events and Outreach Coordinator, Jason Kervison, talks about the services offered during the 37 years the career fair has been running at the institution.
Meet friends, network, and just see what's next in their career. It's an amazing opportunity because instead of the traditional way of having a job application, having an interview, we have hundreds of recruiters actually on campus today, and you can have individual conversations with everyone to see what it's like in that organization, see what their values are like and if it aligns with you, and see what opportunities are available for you as a student and a graduate. So students can look at future careers, but also look at current support services to help them while they are still a student. Now we have 72 organizations and just over 145 employer representatives.
The University of Lethbridge Housing Services provides residents on campus kind of in 3 facilities, so University Hall, Cooley View, and Parkway. So residents can apply to live on campus while they come to school, and then after living in campus for a year can apply to be a resident assistant. We've had a pretty consistent flow of people coming in.
I came to just know more about my opportunities here in Lethbridge and kind of the path that I want my studies to go, and kind of what's the next step for me right now and for the future as well. I've kind of known what I can do right now, like what qualifications I have just for being a student, just for the past jobs that I've had, which is a lot more. It's a lot reassuring of the things I can do right now without having my degree, and then also the information, like the opportunities I can have as soon as I get my degree as well.
The career fairs are held twice a year, one in January and one in September. For Bridge City News, I'm Heidi Echevarria.
Well, we all need a little life hack for dealing with bad weather, but this person may have taken it to the extreme. A man in icy Newton County, Georgia, used a flamethrower to help clear the streets in front of his house. As reported Wednesday, the southern U.S. was blanketed by a storm that threw down ice and snow, including the states of Florida, Georgia, and Louisiana, where some areas had up to 7 inches of snow. I could certainly use one of those for my back alley. But here in Lethbridge, we had a few flurries today and mainly overcast skies, but we have some sunny days ahead of us, especially coming up this weekend. I'll be back after the break with a full look at the weather picture. Well, a few flurries beginning tonight after midnight could see 2 to 4 centimeters of snow, actually. Also very windy. We're talking winds up to 80 kilometers per hour this evening before diminishing down to 20 to 40 K. And then as we get into Friday, we could see flurries beginning in the late afternoon and heading into Friday night as we get into that weekend there. So today we saw that nice 3 degree. We're going to drop to the minuses for the highs tomorrow. So high of -1 on Friday, and then sunshine for the weekend, although a little bit chilly, -3 for the high on Saturday. And then we're going to rise to +2 on Sunday with clear skies, 2 degrees again on Monday with clear skies, and then all the way up to 9 degrees for next Tuesday, and then back to 3 on Wednesday with a mix of sun and clouds. So we're, as we get into next week, we're going to be hovering above that average high for this time of year, which is lovely. But until we get there, we're kind of in this range here. So -1 the average high, -13 the average low for this time of year. A record high on this day was 15 degrees. That happened back in 2005, and -43 was the record low on this day, happening in 1943. So 8:16, that's when the sun rose this morning, and 5:12 is when the sun is going to bed tonight. So we're talking 3 minutes more daylight today than we saw yesterday. So 8 hours and 56 minutes to be exact. Victoria, mix of sun and cloud and sunshine later. 6 degrees for a high, 4 in Vancouver tomorrow with clear skies. Edmonton -1, but windy, up to 60 winds. Calgary could see winds up to 20, then 40 to 60 kilometers per hour with a high of -2, mix of sun and clouds. Also seeing a lot of wind throughout the rest of the prairies. So all of these cities here across Saskatchewan and even Winnipeg, up to 60 kilometer per hour winds. Light snow expected in Saskatoon, -4, -6 in Regina. Of course, that's going to come with some blowing snow. And then Winnipeg, up to 2 centimeters of snow expected tomorrow with a high of -2. As we look to the central part of the country here, we're seeing slight chance of flurries in Toronto tomorrow early in the morning, 30% chance, then clearing up later, -5 for the high, -9 for the high. And Ottawa could see some snowfall there as well, -8 expected tomorrow in Montreal with clearing skies. As we look into Atlantic Canada, Fredericton seeing a high tomorrow of -7, clear skies. Halifax seeing a slight chance of flurries, -6 for the high, -6 also in Charlottetown, -2 in St. John's. St. John's could see snow and snow squall warnings there. So there you have it. That is your forecast. Canadian retail sales remained flat in November 2024 compared to the month before. Stats Canada says the retail sales report also showed a rebound in December, right in line with the holiday season and the start of Ottawa's GST and HST holiday. The agency says overall retail sales for November totaled $67.6 billion, mostly unchanged from October. BMO senior economists say if the preliminary estimate of a 1.6% gain in retail sales through December holds true, it would be the largest gain in 2 years. A new poll says nearly half of Canadians can't maintain their current standard of living due to rising costs. The survey done for RBC found 48% of those asked say they can no longer maintain their standard of living, while the same amount say they know they won't ever be able to get ahead financially, even after inflation rates return to the Bank of Canada's target of 2%. The polls say 47% of those asked have dipped into their emergency fund or retirement savings to help cope with rising costs, while 60% of those polled are worried they don't have enough money to cover unexpected expenses. Tesla says it will raise the price of its cheapest model by up to $9,000 US starting February 1st. The company says the price increase will affect the Model 3 with a separate increase for models X and Y and S by $4,000 US. The increases coincide when US President Donald Trump intends to implement damaging 25% tariffs against Canada. A January price increase already came as Transport Canada announced funding for the incentive program had been fully used up, so EV rebates were no longer available for approval. Now here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was up 122 points on the day to finish at 25,434. The Dow was up 408 points to 44,565. The S&P 500 was up 32 points to 6118, and the Nasdaq was up 244 points to finish at 20,053. West Texas Intermediate Oil was down $1.17 to $74.27 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 2 cents to $3.94 US. Gold was down $1.87 to $27.5330 US an ounce, and silver was down 33 cents to $30.44 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $8.55 per bushel, barley is at $6.58, canola is at $14.44, and corn is at $8.46 per bushel. Live cattle February contract was up $1.05 to $201.10. Feeder cattle were up 3 cents to $277.08. Lean hogs February contract was up 65 cents to 82.13, and the Canadian dollar remained unchanged over the last 24 hours and currently sits at 69.50 US.
Recapping one of our top stories, the Liberal leadership race to replace Justin Trudeau as party leader is now closed. Candidates had to confirm their bids by 5 p.m. Eastern Time today and pay a $50,000 refundable deposit. Liberal House leader Karina Gold and Indigenous MP Jamie Battiste have submitted their paperwork. They join former Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland, former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney, and Ottawa MP Chandra Arya, who submitted their documents yesterday. A new leader will be elected in March. Well, heart disease is the second leading cause of death in Canada, and in southern Alberta, there is a higher risk of dying from this disease, in part due to lack of resources. Dr. Sayi Zilki is one of only 6 cardiologists in AHS's South Zone, and she joins us after the break. Also, when you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. You can also visit our website anytime to check out a number of our stories and interviews.
Heart disease is the second leading cause of death in Canada. But did you know that if you live in southern Alberta, your risk of dying from heart disease is even higher? Going to talk about that and more with today's guest who joins us from right here in Lethbridge. Dr. Sayi Zilki is a cardiologist and author. She is the physician lead for cardiac sciences in the AHS South Zone, the chair for the Southern Alberta Cardiac Sciences Advisory Cabinet, and is a member of the University of Lethbridge Board of Governors. And she is the medical doctor or director of Chinook Cardiology and of the Heart Function Clinic and Cardiac Rehabilitation Program, both part of the Alberta Healthy Living Program of Alberta Health Services. Now, don't ask me to repeat that. That was a mouthful. Great to have you with us, Dr. Zilki.
Thank you so much for having me, sir.
Oh, looking forward to the conversation here today. Now, I understand that residents of southern Alberta are roughly 30% more likely to die from cardiac-related disease. Now, is this at least in part because we don't have a cardiac catheterization laboratory here?
It's an excellent question. It's likely multifactorial. I mentioned, and to be exact, the relative risk of death is 26.6% higher from cardiovascular disease here in southern Alberta compared to the rest of the province, and that's just not okay. And we have never studied the reasons, but we have some thoughts and hypotheses as to why that may be. We do know that our risk factor profile in the population is about 15% higher compared to the rest of the province. Sadly, our population is less healthy, so that surely contributes to it. We do not have access to the recommended number of cardiologists. And we also have studies that show that the more access to cardiology, the better the outcomes. So that likely contributes to it. And of course, as you mentioned, we do not have access to some of the diagnostic and therapeutic modalities, such as a coronary angiogram, which are now considered standard of care in cardiology.
Right, so we're missing some key components here, and that's all contributing toward that higher risk here in southern Alberta. So, I mean, how many people does this impact every year? I understand it's like more than 1,000. Is that correct?
About just over 1,300 patients are expected or are required to make the trip to Calgary to the coronary angiography suite cath lab in Calgary.
And some maybe even aren't healthy enough to make the journey, and you're kind of stuck, right? So Yeah. Now, you've made this your mission, haven't you? I mean, you recently got the keys to the city given to you, and well-deserved, so kudos to you there. But you really want to get a cardiac cath lab for Southern Alberta. This is important, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I'm humbled by the support of my community, but ultimately, I'm driven by one thing, and that is my patients and my patient care. I cannot emphasize to you how difficult it is when we have a patient that is too sick to airlift to Calgary. You have to sit at the bedside in the ICU, and the frustration of knowing that if you were in Calgary, you'd be rolling them down the hall to get the help, to get them the help that they need, but sometimes they're just too sick to airlift. That's just devastating. It's devastating for the patients, of course, their family, the team that's taking care of them, and some patients have very large number of difficulties commuting to Calgary to access some of the services. Even the patients who are not admitted, who are home but need to make the trip to Calgary. Some are older in our field. Some have no access, no transportation, no way of really getting there. We do try our best not to leave anyone behind and kind of find volunteers to get them to Calgary, but still, it's a big deal. Having care closer to home matters.
Yeah, they're not just numbers, right? I mean, we're talking, 1,300 people. Well, it's a stat, but each one of those, is a mom, a dad, a grandfather, whatever, a loved one, and they matter. So, I mean, what kinds of crucial procedures does a cath lab actually do? I mean, again, for just somebody watching, I mean, I don't know, what do they do?
Person. So a cornea angiography suite does two things: diagnostics, and also can be used to provide therapy, so therapeutics. So basically, a cath lab or a coronary angiogram, a cardiac catheterization is allows us to see the coronary arteries better and allows us to measure pressure inside the heart and understand the flows across the valves in the heart, as well as measure pressures in the lungs. So the way that it happens is that typically we freeze the skin in the wrist or on top of the leg, with similar to what a dentist uses to freeze your gums, and pass a small tube or a catheter, we call it, through the artery. We go all the way to the heart, engage the artery in the heart, shoot some dye that lights up under X-ray, and with X-ray machines take a picture or a video of the dye passing through the arteries. Now, if the arteries are narrowed, we will see that because there's dye going through. And also we can, with the wires and catheters we have inside the heart, we can measure flow to understand what is happening with the valves and what are the pressures inside the heart and the lungs. If there are narrowings in the arteries of the heart, then we can open those arteries with a stent and with a balloon. So dilate the artery and put a stent as a scaffolding to keep that artery open. That is what we do with patients who present who have chest pain, who because of the narrowing in the arteries of the heart. But very importantly, that's what we do on urgent basis when patients present with heart attack.
So this again, really, but the sounds of it, is a life-saving thing. I mean, this shows you what's going on, and now you're informed as to what do we need to do. And without that, you're kind of shooting in the dark, right? And you're maybe guessing, and yeah.
Yeah, and standard of care, that's how we practice cardiology. So
Yeah, okay. Well, the good news is, I guess, that the Alberta government has recently finished the planning part of, going ahead with the next stage of getting Lethbridge a cardiac cath lab. So what is that next step then that we need to take?
yeah, so the government of Alberta has announced funding towards functional planning for a cath lab, but also for cardiac sciences in general. In order to have a successful cardiac catheterization program, we will need a support of an updated ICU and CCU coronary care unit, as well as the cardiology ward and other forms of imaging. So this is an all-encompassing program altogether to hopefully help elevate the care that we provide in Southern Alberta.
Oh, for sure. And is that going to be, are they planning on building that within the existing Lethbridge Chinook Regional Hospital here, or is that going to be like a separate brand new facility they're going to build?
So that's not quite settled, but we do have shelf space, and that's part of the feasibility study. Currently, at Chinook Regional Hospital, the 4L and 5L, the new part of the buildings, are empty. So we'd love to see that used and not sit there empty. We are ready to go. So we're just waiting for the feasibility study to be completed. And then hopefully the government will take the further step in funding it. But in the interim, we have set up the Cardiac Sciences Advisory Cabinet. So with prominent leaders in the community, and have established a relationship with the Chinook Regional Hospital Foundation to fundraise towards this project. And that has been an extremely wonderful and productive project. And our goal is ambitious. We're hoping to raise $30 million by 2027, but okay.
That's a lot of money, but gives you a few years. Okay.
For sure.
Yeah, and you know, I know there's a February 1st, right? There's an event taking place, the Bringing Hearts Home Gala. That'll be at the Agri-Food Hub and Trade Center here in Lethbridge. And I understand Lanny McDonald's going to be there, right? Former NHL star, and some entertainment music from Trevor Panzak. So you know, it'll be good, I'm sure. And again, that's coming up February 1st, so people can. You know, take part in that hopefully. And but realistically, I mean, how long do you think it'll be? You know, provided I guess that money is raised and so forth, and money coming in from government. I mean, how long would it take to have that new cath lab up and running?
If I had my way, it would be next week. Because every single day that goes by, we potentially lose a life, and that's not acceptable. The sooner the better. I think realistically it will it will take a couple of years, so 2027 at the earliest, and possibly 2029. But it's really hard to know that until we have done the feasibility study and until we have the full funding in place to build it. But I have to tell you, Paul, I am over the moon thrilled with our gala on February 1st. It looks like it will be the largest gala held in Lethbridge at the exhibition center because it's the largest venue. And we weren't quite sure what the support would be like in the community, but we are incredibly overwhelmed by it. It is sold out. We are running a wait list. And we have so far raised over $400,000 in revenue, and we haven't even held the gala yet.
Right, yeah, so much more to come then.
Yeah, and that also breaks the record for the most raised through an event through the foundation. So we are so humbled and so incredibly overwhelmed by the community's support, and just can't believe it.
All right. Well, let's pray that good things come in here and quickly, right? And you've been advocating for more cardiologists in Southern Alberta. How many do we need?
So we need quite a few. So when I first came here in 2013, I was the first cardiologist.
Yeah, just like one on your own. That's crazy.
On my own with an amazing team who's with me, still with me. But but now we are 6 cardiologists across the zone, which is fantastic. The Canadian Medical Association has put a recommendation out that we should have about 4.1 cardiologists per 100,000 population. Our catchment area is above 300,000. So we think at least 12 would be a good place to start. And
you've got 6 now?
We have 6.
Okay.
And in the US, just for your information, there's about 38.6 cardiologists for every 100,000. So that's quite a bit high.
Wow, that's insanely higher. That's like
it is.
wow. Wow, that just boggles my mind.
These
So you're saying our standard of care should be about, you're saying, was it 12 per 300,000? And so in the States that would be, wow. I mean, how many times higher? Wow.
Yeah, 4.1 would be the Canadian recommendation. And as I mentioned to you earlier, Paul, there is a correlation between the number of cardiologists and outcomes and access to care. So, but the good news is that we are very aggressively recruiting, and there are at least 2, if not 3 cardiologists that are planning to start practice before the end of the year. So we're very thrilled with that.
Okay, yeah. Oh, wow, we've got a ways to go though, for sure. Yeah. Any thoughts you have on preventative measures for heart health? I mean that's half the battle, I guess, right? If we had less cases to deal with that way because there was something there to prevent the heart disease from happening, that would be a huge help. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, 100%. I think prevention is fundamental and foundational to the care. As I mentioned to you, we have a population that has higher risk factor profile, more diabetes, more rate of smoking, higher blood pressures, and it's very important that we address that. That's very close to my heart. I spend my free time, extracurricular activity, kind of writing about that and putting information together because I think it's critical. Nothing can take the place of prevention. Of course, intervention and treatment is life-saving, but like you already mentioned, Paul, we need to take it a step back and start where the problem begins, which is prevention.
Yeah, a lot of that, again, dealing with our diet and with exercise and so forth, and just healthy living, right? I know you've written a book on that as well. So, well, we are running out of time, but I want to say a big thank you to you and your team working with you for all the efforts you put in to save lives here in Southern Alberta. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Paul, for covering this.
Oh, you bet. Dr. Saye Zielke, she's the medical director of Chinook Cardiology in Lethbridge.
So what makes a great leader? Well, I think most of us have some strong opinions on what a poor leader looks like, but wouldn't it be good to learn how to become a great leader in our own home, our church, or in the workplace? Well, today's guest has some great advice on this. Joining us from Tucson, Arizona is Dr. Kevin Lehman. He's a psychologist and best-selling author. In fact, you've probably seen him on Oprah, The View, Good Morning America, Focus on the Family, and his latest book is Be a Great Leader by Friday. Good to have you with us, Dr. Lehman.
It's good to be with you. Let's talk.
Okay, so the title alone is a little bit humorous, but you have this whole series of books about accomplishing some great, almost outlandish task by Friday, don't you? I looked you up. I've seen how to have a new husband by Friday, have a new kid by Friday.
Well, actually, to have a new kid and to have a new husband, those titles are very misleading because you could have a new kid by Wednesday and a new husband. For example, women love to ask us men questions. I'm here to tell you, we hate your questions. I didn't say we dislike them. I said we hate them. And we hate the why word. Well, women love the why word. They're like the inquiring minds want to know. And ladies tell me all the time, if I wouldn't ask my husband a question, I'd never get any information out of him. I say,
it's so true. Okay, you hate questions, but unfortunately, you're stuck with me for the next few minutes because I'm going to ask you some questions. So,
you ask my opinion to get more out of me.
Yeah. Okay. So, Dr. Lehman, in your latest book, you're tackling leadership. So, what's the most important thing any leader needs to know?
Well, any leader, male or female, has to understand that leadership is personal with a capital P. And it's all about relationships, relationships, relationships. If you have to tell someone you're the leader, I got news for you, Jack or Jill, you're not a leader. So that's the most important thing. You have to be transparent. and there has to be an authenticity to you. And if those things are missing, you're not going to be an effective leader.
Interesting. Now, do you consider yourself a leader?
Well, I guess I am. I'm the founder of 8 charter schools, 6 in Arizona and 2 in Colorado. But the amusing thing about that, I mean, I can amuse myself just talking about my background. I graduated 4th and bottom of my class in high school, couldn't get in college, finally got admitted to college on probation, got thrown out of college a year later, moved from Buffalo, New York to Tucson, got a job as a janitor, met my wife in the men's room of a hospital.
Wow.
And she was the key person that God used to turn my entire life in a different direction. So I'm one of those guys who did some things in life, but no one ever expected me to do anything.
Wow. You know, not many people can say that they met their wife in a men's room either. So
No, not me.
that's a meet cute right there. So why and how did you pursue leadership?
Well, I've written 71 books, and leadership today, I think you would agree, is missing, not only in your country, but mine, at almost every level. And of course, leaders tend to fall into 3 basic categories. They're the authoritarians who say, hey, I'm the boss, you're going to do what I tell you to do. Well, good luck with that. And then there's the permissives who are driven to be liked by everybody. Well, good luck with that. And the one that I would like to help create is the authoritative leader, where your yes is yes, your no is no, you're willing to make tough decisions, but you are transparent. And get this, they don't care what you know until they know you care. So it goes back to relationships, relationships, relationships. This isn't rocket science. I'm not smart enough to write a complicated book. All my books tend to be fun, practical. People like them, thank God. That's why I'm still writing books. I thought I was done, and a publisher came along and said, I'd love you to do a book on leadership and one on teachers. And so my next book in April is Be a Great Teacher by Friday. I'm stuck on Friday.
You're stuck on Friday. It's a good day of the week. People like Friday. But Dr. Lehman, I think you're most well known for your birth order books. So what exactly is birth order, and how does it help you understand other people, like your coworker, your father, your teenagers, or your mother-in-law?
Yeah, it's interesting because when I go to New York and do one of the morning shows, my publisher always says, don't mention birth order, because the host always finds it so fascinating.
Oh, boy.
That these 3 or 4 little cubs could come out of the same den, but they're different. And I say, to answer your question, birth order is the dynamic, fluid relationship that exists between parent and child and siblings with one another. And every firstborn, pay attention to what I'm about to tell you. You are the lab rat of the family. Your parents practiced on you. They didn't have a clue what to do with that little 19-incher. And by the way, most of the people in your profession are firstborn children. Okay.
Are you serious?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. In fact, all those talk show, what do you think Oprah is? And all those people, I mean, the comedians, for example, like Billy Crystal, Eddie Murphy, Drew Carey, Jim Carrey, Martin Short, Chevy Chase, Steve Martin, guess what? They're all babies.
They're the babies of the family. Okay.
So firstborns tend to be reliable, conscientious list makers. They overplan things. They get in trouble for what their kid sister or brother did. I don't care what she did. You are the oldest. I expect more to you, young woman. So that's the mantra that us parents throw on the firstborns. The secondborn, almost predictably, A is to B type predictability, is opposite of the firstborn. In fact, you might find this to be amusing. The title of the birth order book, when it went to the publisher with cardboard and rubber bands, was named, and I still think it was a great title, Abel Had It Coming. And the publisher said, Abel Had It Coming? You can't have a title like that. I said, it's a great title. But anyway.
It gets people's attention, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. According to your writings, which 2 people would you not put together in the same room without supervision?
Well, the 2 firstborns.
Mm.
Without supervision?
Yeah.
Oh, the babies of the family.
Okay.
Oh, the babies would do everything but tackle the task you give them. They're having fun. But what's interesting about your question is this. If you look at marriage, the best matches are not firstborn and firstborn or only born and only born. They're firstborn and youngest or firstborn and middle.
That's weird. That's what my husband and I are, firstborn and youngest.
Perfect. I married the firstborn who can spot a flaw at 50 paces, and I'm the baby of the family. We've been married for 57 years in a row, and we've been happily married because I was so stupid. I asked her the question. I said, "Are we happily married?" And she said, "You're very happily married," as I recall. That was the other conversation.
She told you. Yes, she
Oh, yeah.
did. Okay, so Dr. Lehman, what's the best way to prompt change in another person's behavior? I don't know. That
Well,
sounds loaded to me.
yeah, I like that question because as a leader, you can't assume that people see life the way you do. Firstborn children, for example, will buy an automobile, a car, completely different than the youngest child in the family. The firstborn will read Car and Driver magazine and they love the specification page. Us babies of the family could care less. You know, we'll go on a car lot and go, Shazam! Do you have a teal green one with gold trim? I'll take it. 60 payments later, we wonder why we bought that stupid car. But you have to get as a leader, you have to know who you're leading. So again, put it in a little different sentence. You can't lead people you don't know. So it gets back to leadership is personal. And it's not only getting that person on the bus, it's getting them on the right seat on the bus that's important. So birth order, and again, I would tell anybody in business, don't ever ask somebody what their birth order is, okay? They'll think you're nuts.
Don't put it on your resume, in other words.
Right, but you might say, hey, tell me about yourself. Where did you grow up, for example? And just listen. And you'll figure out their birth order really quickly. If you came to my sister's house in Jamestown, New York, the first thing you would see is the clear vinyl runner. There's a message there. Don't walk on the blue carpet. Her kids were color coordinated from birth. She marries a dentist, and his motto is find the hole, drill the hole, fill the hole. And by the way, dentists are notoriously firstborn or only born children. So getting into someone's head and seeing how they see life really helps you strategize as a leader is what person in my organization should be on this seat in the particular bus we're driving.
Oh, so interesting. Now, in your book, you write about 7 essential vitamins that we all need. So what are vitamins E and N, and why are they so important for a leader to understand?
Well, vitamin E is encouragement.
Okay.
It comes from a guy named Paul. I never caught his last name, but he said things in the Bible like encourage one another. Now, there's a difference between encouragement and praise. Let me tell you the difference. Encouragement talks about the action that an employee or maybe a kid did. For example, if a kid brings home 5 A's on a report card, that's sort of a surprise. What does a mother say? Oh, 5 A's, I am so proud of you. Oh, I can't wait to call Grandma and Aunt Ethel and tell them about this. This is wonderful. Here's 5 kisses and a $20 bill. Now, that's praise. And I'm telling you, praise is destructive in relationships. And people say, did he say what I heard him say? Yes, I did. Praise is destructive. Encouragement. Here's an example. The kid brings home 5 A's and a B, or the employee does something wonderful. Wow, 5 A's. Honey, it looked like all that hard work you put in is really paying off. Congratulations. And guess what? You just saved yourself $20. So with the employee, hey, Smith, and this is personal. You write them a personal note, the power of the personal note. I believe in that. Put it in the mail. Let it come to that employee's home even. Or if you're in the same building, walk down to the office and say, any chance you're free for lunch today? And take that person out to lunch and look them in the eye or her in the eye and say, listen, that was a fantastic job on that Foster report. You did a wonderful job. I just want to compliment you eyeball to eyeball, let you know how proud I am to have you be in our organization. My expectations for you are always high, and guess what? You always deliver. Now, those are words of encouragement. Those are words that I will run home, or a woman will run home and tell her husband about what the boss said about her today. So this isn't rocket science. It's very simple stuff. And the book is simple. It's an easy read. It's inexpensive. The other thing I would tell people, if you're really into leadership, read my book, The Way of the Shepherd. If you know anything about the book business, and I'm sure you do, a book stays in hardback for 1 year. They drop it into softback. The Way of the Shepherd's been in hardback for 20 years straight. It's still in hardback to this day. It sells like crazy. And don't take my word for it. Go on Amazon and read the reviews. They're 5-star reviews. So the stuff is good stuff. And for people who want to be a leader, this is a good book. For people who are CEOs or CFOs, it's a wonderful resource for you. For people who are managers, ditto. So it could be titled How to Be Successful in Life. And because the elements of success are on the pages of Be a Great Leader by Friday.
We don't have a lot of time left, but I mean, your book is filled with letters, as we were talking about, vitamins E and N. By the way, I don't know if you mentioned what vitamin N was.
Oh, no, I did. Vitamin N, is that what we're talking about? I'm missing? Is vitamin no. It's no. And sometimes this gets to disciplining employees. How do you discipline an employee? Well, you don't call them out in a meeting, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But you get them behind closed doors and you say, hey, listen, I see your performance the last 6 months has gone really downhill, and there's got to be some reasons for that. Is there anything personal I can help you with? So my first words out of my mouth is, can I help you with something?
That's great.
But then I'm going to go down that rabbit hole and say, listen, you know, the bottom line is, after I exhaust all those issues, your performance has to improve. Or maybe we look for another seat on that bus for you.
Yeah. And then speaking of letters, I think you also mentioned something, the 3 R's of leadership.
Oh, yeah. And it's relationships.
Okay, that one's, And then you also have an ABCs of leadership. So we got acceptance, belonging, and competence, right?
Yeah. And again, that goes in parenthood. It goes in marriage. It goes in any type of leadership. People have to be accepted. They have to feel like they belong, and they have to develop competence or they fail.
Excellent. It looks like we're out of time, unfortunately, but I would love to dive more into this with you.
Well, let's do it again sometime.
We should. Okay. Well, you know what? For now, though, thanks so much for being with us today, Dr. Lehman. Really appreciate having you on.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Dr. Kevin Lehman is the author of Be a Great Leader by Friday. That is available wherever books are sold. I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks so much for watching.